just been going for a few minutes and I didn't know that the thing wasn't live, so let's restart. Not a fan of this type of restarting business, but since I'm repeating to an extent, I will briefly rehash what I said already. Again, this video is for somebody who made a request that I talk about breathwork, and I was just sharing how I went to a breathwork retreat. It's called holotropic breathwork, and Stan Groff came up with it, G-R-O-F. He coined the phrase, I think it was like in 1970, 60s, 70s, 80s, somewhere around there. Maybe earlier than that. And the idea was to utilize breathing techniques to achieve what he called non-ordinary states of reality. So it's a fully natural method of essentially diving into the subconscious, diving into your own subconscious and the subconscious of the world at large. So I spent $1,700 to attend this breathwork retreat. There was, I don't know how many people, 20 people maybe, 20, 25. And I'm going to tie this into how you can use this method. This is again related to attacks, energetic attacks, entities, and just how to keep your internal balance if you're undergoing some sort of attack. So again, breathwork it's simple. There's nothing complicated about it. You're using your breath, and there are a few other elements added. It's not just breathing, but it's not super complicated. So the session that I was in uses music. It uses all kinds of music, and the idea is to sort of maintain a baseline, because when you go under, so to speak, you're traveling the etheric, the subconscious plane, and you can get lost. And when the session's over, they play certain type of music and they walk around welcoming everybody back to the space. So it starts off with everybody pairs up and you get what's called a trip sitter. So you're going to treat the thing exactly as if you were taking some sort of drug. So when people do like salvia, or they do LSD or mushrooms, ayahuasca, things like that. Hey Silky, hey Nigel, hey Trixie. When you're doing all these types of things, it's always wise to make sure that the setting and environment is correct, and also that it's always advised that you have a trip sitter, because you need some sort of a grounding technique. You need a tether. It's not absolutely necessary, but highly advised. So when you're doing breath work, it's the same idea. We start off, it was a big circular room, very nice sound, very nice acoustics, and so everybody paired up. You just find whoever you gravitate to. Somebody found me. I didn't pick anybody. Her name's Penny, and I've done at least a video with her. I have her book. I was even reading out of her book. It was what's it called? Something Bones. Polishing the bones or something like that. But so you have kind of like yoga mats, or just almost like mattresses on the ground. Those little soft, very small mattresses / pads, even blankets, pillows, things like that, just to make the area very comfortable. And it starts off with music, and this is all like a curated music list. It's not just random. It starts off with kind of more gentle music, and I think we put eye covers on. or at least they were an option. And there will be a little bit of voice speaking at the beginning, kind of guiding your journey into the experience. And then you just have your sitter sitting right next to you. And like, when I did it the first time, the music started, we got into the session. These are like half an hour, 45 minutes. I think actually maybe they're closer to an hour. Maybe 10 seconds into the session, people just went off. Like, the whole room, within a minute, like, people were moving around, someone started crying immediately, just like bawling his eyes out, like screaming. He was saying like, "Oh no, not this again." He even stood up, like his trip sitter had to kind of corral him to make sure he didn't run around or step on anybody. And he was just screaming, bawling his eyes out for like 10 minutes straight. A woman next to me started like making fish motions like she was a dolphin in the ocean. Some people started laughing. There was a lot of movement. Some people stayed completely still. And it took people various times to get into whatever state they were going to get to. And for me personally, I was a little bit suspicious of it, and I knew it was a sort of a touchy subject because I had that traumatic weed experience, and I was just going slow with it. But eventually I did sort of go underneath the surface a little bit, and I didn't know how much time passed, but eventually one of the main women came up to me, and she just like asked very quietly if they could work on my hands. And she said that she didn't say exactly what was up with my hands, but she just said, "It looks like you have a little bit of there's a word for it. It's like a word when your muscles don't have the correct blood circulation, and they start like tensing up, seizing up a little bit." So later on I found out that my hands were doing like this. They were like scrunching up into a weird position, and since I was already underneath, I felt the sort of panic coming, like had come at the onset of the weed trip, and I knew that my own mind would take the situation and make it into something more than it actually amplifies whatever's going on. So I just surrendered to the situation, and I said, "Okay, yeah, you can work with my hands." And two of the people grabbed my hands, and I felt the need to. I started moving my hands in circular motions, and they were like massaging them. And I went through a whole bunch of very complex hand movements. And I don't remember it super clearly, but there was something about the situation that was bringing some healing to the part of my mind that had been severely traumatized during the weed trip. And just the fact that I was in that space, that non-ordinary reality with two people helping out, basically. They had no clue what was going on. They didn't know what was going on in my head. I wasn't saying anything, but they were going with my hand motions, and that just like got me. I just started crying when they were doing this, like holding my hands and moving my hands, and then they started crying, and then eventually my hands were not as seized up anymore, and they just were relaxed, and the two people that were helping move them eventually took off and went to assist somebody else. But it was I didn't go anywhere. I didn't go see, like some people said they went off to another dimension, or they went and visited. One girl went and visited her father, like hung out with him. He had passed a couple years earlier. And when when the time came for her to go, he was saying, "You got to go back now." And she was like, "No, I don't want to go back. Like, I want to stay here with you." But he, insisted that she go back and said, "You can come back at some point if you want." But there were just there were so many different experiences. And so after the hour, everybody comes back, and you have some time to rest, you have like a break, and then everyone gets what they call mandalas. It's not anything to do with the Mandela effect. It's just a circle on a piece of paper, and I'm making a video real quick. But I'll be ready to eat soon. Don't worry. I'm gonna eat now. So we would make those mandala pictures, and we would draw on them what we felt the experience had been like, and then sort of share. We would verbally share what had gone on in our trip, and yeah, it was most definitely a non-ordinary experience. It wasn't the same for me as everybody else, where they just go fully underneath or go fully into a different dimension, but I was definitely exploring the more inner layers of my own subconscious. So when that whole session, the retreat was over, and I came back to California, and like I said, when I was doing Lyft and Uber, I would practice breath work constantly. I would wake up and I would just start doing the technique, and the main function that it had for me was that it kept me present. It kept me in the moment, and I wasn't thinking about how much longer I had left to drive. I wasn't thinking about all the problems I had at home. I was just staying present, and it got me through the day. And I continued doing that for like 2 years straight, just constantly practicing breath work. So the technique is very simple. If you're just starting it for the first time, I would recommend that you have a sitter. But if you don't, just make sure that the setting is good. Out in nature is probably the best, but if not, if you're inside, be in a quiet room, a dark space, and have music. And don't start too heavy and fast breathing, because that will drop you in really quick. So you just breathe in. You're breathing in deeper than you normally would, and a little bit faster than you normally would. And the idea is that you're over oxidating your brain. And I don't know the exact science behind how it works, but as humans, we are supposed to be able to access this state often. But all of the stuff that's in this realm acts as inhibitors to our sort of access to the other realms. And so if you practice this technique, it will help your mind remember how to access. And I've used it, and this is specifically with reference to the person who asked for the video. I've used it for just asking into situations. If I've had hard situations or hard decisions coming up, I've used breathwork sessions to basically go into it with the intent to find out the deeper layers of the thing that I'm experiencing or that I'm having trouble with. And so you set the intent and then start doing the breath work and let it go. Let the thought form go. Don't try to control how the thing comes out. And every time I've done that, I've had some sort of a revelation or an answer to whatever it was that I was looking for. And even if I didn't, every single time I've always come out with some new perspective, or ideas will flow in around things I've already been working on or thinking about doing, and it's always been helpful. So the person that was asking about this, it's about attacks and entity attacks and things like that, and for him I would say try this out. If you have a sitter, yes. If not, it's fine. Just go into the breath work with the intent to find out more about what you're dealing with, and you have to surrender to it. It's the same as any other drug experience. If you try to control it, then you'll probably get slapped around a little bit. Because the way I view entity attacks and things like that is that we are all responsible for everything in our experience. There's not one single facet of it that we are not responsible for on some level. So if you have something that's happening to you, if you have an attack or a bunch of attacks, to me it's pointing to the fact that you have something in your own personal life that has been left unattended, or you have something that you're trying to avoid, at least subconsciously. And if you go into a breathwork session with the honest intent to be shown what it's actually about and possibly techniques to deal with whatever you're receiving, then you will receive some sort of insight. And it doesn't have to. You don't have to get it right the first time. Just practice. And if you're doing breath work, and especially if you have music in, just be aware that you can get the limbs tensing up. I wish I remembered the name of it, but I don't. And if you start feeling anxious or you feel like a panic attack is coming, just slow down the breathing a little bit and relax. That's the best advice I can give. Relaxing and surrendering to the situation is always the best way to deal with it. I've been thinking about this all day. Has anybody else in here ever tried this? Does anybody have any experience with breathwork? And it's not involving any substances, so it's a very pure and natural way to tap into your subconscious. Polishing the bones, yeah. I started a bunch of books that I didn't finish. I finished some of them. I finished the Bhagavad Gita. I was reading Stephen's book for a while. Anyway, this was not intended to be any long video, so I'm probably going to wrap it up. But if you have had any experience with breathwork and you'd like to share some of your own personal experiences with it, then please leave a comment. Otherwise, just read up on it. Read up on Stan's work. There's a whole bunch of experience accounts online if you'd like to look at them. And just be safe. It can be dangerous, so just make sure you've prepared. Alright. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Peace.